How did you fix your life problems? When I was a teenager, I was homeless. A lot of places wouldn't hire me because I had no experience or interview clothes. I went to the Board of Education and begged the HR lady to give me a chance at any job. I told her I'd scrub the school with a toothbrush if they paid me. They made me a general sub for clerical. I took a call for one of the bad neighborhood schools that some others turned down. Walking across town to get there every day, I had to start walking at 4:30 a.m. to be on time. I wore dress clothes from a church mission that were way too big, but I did my best. After 4 months, they gave me a long-term position, then a permanent one with benefits. I saved up enough for an apartment and wound up A-okay. Bad decisions got me kicked out of my house at 13. I was homeless for a few weeks until I found a little old lady willing to rent out her severely fire-damaged mobile home to me for $100 a week. I did that for a few months until I found another lady willing to rent out a one-bed and bath space to me. I think it was $300 a month, and I had to do yard work and repairs. I did that for years until I left to go to college. I struggled in college because I was a full-time student while working 2 full-time jobs. I met my wife, got my degree, tried to reconnect with my parents. It was tough. I got married and then struggled to find lucrative work for a year. Things have been improving exponentially since. I work like crazy, save like mad, and invest aggressively. I bought our first house for cash in 2017. We had our first baby in 2019 and hit millionaire status in August 2020. Be excited for what your future will bring you. After being laid off from my last factory job, I suddenly found myself on the streets of Toronto in the early 1990s with a grade 9 education, no money, no friends, no job references, and not really any family. So what did I do? I found an unbelievably dirty, crappy crawl-space basement apartment, applied for welfare. I stopped drinking and smoking and anything else that wasn't healthy. Got a gym membership and went 4 hours a day. I jogged 5 miles every morning, weather permitting. I enrolled in an adult high school, had to ignore everyone and everything that would be a distraction. I got my high school diploma with honors in 2 years, then applied for a university. I got in. I moved to a different city and spent 4 years getting my bachelor's honors in philosophy because I like to think and solve problems. Then I applied to a graduate program and spent the next 10 years getting my MA and my PhD. Then I spent the next several years as a professor, making good money and having lots of fun. Won't say how things are going now because I got cursed with poor health, etc., and I am no longer working. I'll just say that I'm happy now and know that I would have ended up either dead or in jail if I hadn't done what I did all those years ago. Sooner or later, everyone has got to take their life seriously. Moving out of my parents' house. I was living with my parents, which is a very common thing in India, until the end of medical school. I've been in my comfort zone all my life and had everything I needed. That led to depression and I wanted to live by myself and get out of my bubble. Now, I can't say I figured it all out, but I definitely feel better overall. I got injured in a car accident from being rear-ended. I lost my business and then my wife of 19 years left for another man, leaving me behind a 17-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. No job, no car, no money. 2 kids and $2,000 a month in rent coming due. 2 days after she left, I took my real estate license test. I passed. I had planned to surprise her, but had hid that I was studying in case I failed. Either way, it wasn't enough and I ended up taking a job at Amazon. I worked a graveyard shift while my daughter stayed home with my son. I also did open houses on the weekend, in hopes someone would walk in unrepresented. It still wasn't enough, so I signed up to drive Uber and Lyft. I had been able to pick up a decent vehicle from a family member for cheap, and I was in business. I switched my graveyard shift to a day shift and started driving through the nights. The money was alright, but I realized I could make a little more if I switched from Amazon to another large company in the area, so I did. I did that for about a year. Things were okay, and I was making good money. Then Coldwell Banker fired me. I didn't think Coldwell fired anyone as long as they were paying their dues. I had never sold a house, so all it meant was I needed to switch to another broker. Turns out that was a blessing in disguise. A friend called me on my way to sign with Keller Williams and convinced me to sign with a temp agency. I was skeptical, but what did I have to lose? The first and second day, I was placed with Toll Brothers. It was alright and I could see myself doing that. On the third day, I was sent to a local developer and my world was changed. The broker of record and the local developer took me under their wing. After a few months, they hired me away from my temp broker, gave me a salary and commissions, and provided me with an opportunity to change my kids' lives forever. I was able to go from working 4 jobs to just 1, and I have learned more about myself than I could have ever imagined possible. It's been 3.5 long years, but I wouldn't change a thing if I could. I grew up in South Florida during the beginning of the opioid craziness. From 2006 to 2011, things got pretty bad. In 2011, I sold my car for $800, packed 2 suitcases, and bought a bus ticket to Denver. Never been to Denver, didn't know anyone there, but weed was starting to be legal and I didn't want to miss out. I detoxed on the bus going from Florida to Colorado. I got lucky and ended up sitting next to a guy that was a grower and needed help in his garden. I didn't know it at the time, but on the Greyhound, I was having an 8-hour job interview. I got to Denver and he really helped me get established. Within 2 months, I was sleeping on his couch and learning how to grow. I haven't touched a painkiller since I got on that bus 9.5 years ago. Now I'm a married homeowner with a decent car and I'm working my dream job in the cannabis industry. It's not for everyone, but I literally went from homeless sticking needles in my arm to living a life better than I could have ever imagined. I realized that I needed control of my life. I was on a bad path to life in jail and was listening to a bad crowd. Jail or death were the paths in front of me. One day, while cleaning dishes, it dawned on me that I had more worth. I could do better than that. I now run a tow truck job and love it. I get to help people and make smiles happen on so many faces it's not even funny. I give them a little knowledge about their vehicles along the way, but I tell them to take it with a grain of salt as I'm not a real mechanic, but it's a start to what may save them money. I was a high school dropout in a dead-end job earning $30K per year. I found out my girlfriend was pregnant when we were only 20 and had visions of being a deadbeat broke dad who couldn't provide for a kid I brought into the world. So I did a bridging course and went to university at 21, just as my daughter was born. I married my girl at 24 and have had 2 more kids since, comfortably earning $200K a year and have a great career and feel like everything just fell into place. I quit my job. In 2010, my job moved to a different city, and I had to follow because the money was good, or so I thought. 12-hour swing shifts with a 90-minute ride each way. The town was a total hole. Rent was crazy expensive if you didn't want to live in the hood. I ended up working for net zero after bills and expenses. I was living in an apartment with no furniture. After 2 years, I had enough. Learned to day trade, put my savings into it, and doubled it. In a bull market, everyone is a genius. Now that my kids are out of college, my bills are absolutely low. I learned to live cheap, inherited a house, sold it. Now my investments are under professional management. I know people don't like to hear this, but money is important. If your debt-to-income ratio is 100%, it doesn't matter if you're earning $500K or working in the food court. You're still broke. People would say, I wish I had those problems, but you really don't. If you're earning $5K a month, $60K per year before tax, and your bills are only $1K a month, you're doing better than the $500K guy who's struggling to afford his lavish house and unnecessary cars. He looks like a baller, but trust me, he's losing sleep. If that job goes kaflooey, he is effed. Learn to cook and don't buy extravagant cars. I haven't gone on vacation in 5 years. All that stuff adds up. My ex-wife and her current husband spend way over $100K a year trying to afford a, admittedly nice, house, and they're miserable. Always cash broke, but trying to afford more stuff like expensive vacations, bird baths, and little windmills for the yard so they can brag to their co-workers how well they're doing. Then they collapse on the couch and wait for the next workday and do it all over again in jobs they hate, 270 days a year. He's still gonna be paying on that house till he's 80. F that. One of the best things that ever happened to me was when my life turned to crap, I swear. My old school was absolute garbage. My teachers were incompetent and were fueling my mental health issues rather than helping me with them. I ran away from home after a fight with my mom. I lived in a governmental institution for kids and teenagers for 6 months, and then changed schools. I'm a student at a Christian private school now, and I finished therapy. My teachers here really care about their students and want them to be good and happy. I changed my grades from an average of 4.4 to a 2.0. In Germany, 1 is the best and 6 is the worst. Never been happier in my life. I was always chubby while growing up. Had been yo-yo dieting for almost a decade. It eventually got to the point where the dieting wasn't effective. I couldn't lose the weight and wasn't even eating that much. I decided enough was enough, and I was going to beat my eating addiction. I remember walking into the kitchen being fed up with the scale, the food, and my body. I thought to myself, this is absurd. I'm not eating much, yet I still cannot lose weight. I'm done with this. I stubborned up, cut the junk food, the snacks, and the irregular eating. Within 2 weeks, my body caught up. It's been 2 years since, and I'm proud to say that I'm actually in love with the way I look. And I don't even look perfect, but I'm content. I'm no longer addicted to food and do eat rationally. It's not just the food addiction though. As soon as I got that under control, every other aspect of my life improved significantly. I just feel happier overall. After getting arrested and looking forward to nothing but getting messed up on something, I found myself sitting under a bridge with a group of friends trying to scrape together money to buy drugs. A few of them were in their 30s and I was a teenager at the time. After coming down, I made up my mind that I didn't want to end up like them. I joined the military, met the love of my life, and settled down in a different part of the country. I have a great career, a family, and am still happily married. Finding a way to leave was the best decision I ever made. I realized my quest to find love wouldn't fix anything wrong with me. I stopped manipulating and using men to try to fill the void in my soul. I treated men like people instead of tools. I fell in love and married the most wonderful person I've ever met. I went from just partying hard on the weekends to partying hard every day to losing my job from partying too hard. My drug test failed for coke. From there, it turned to meth. Really low point. One day, I had an epiphany and realized that it wasn't what I wanted. Actively sought help, changed friend groups, stayed in, got clean, and I am now doing okay. Can't say I'm doing great, but my future is looking better every day, even if it's only slightly. The addiction is still affecting me, even after all this time. It's caused insomnia and depression, along with anxiety, things I didn't have before doing coke and meth. Had to move around a lot as a child. Went to 4 different primary schools due to my dad's job. I was always a hard-working and competitive student. I was around 9 or 10 years old, and being the new kid alongside wanting to do well in studies, this led to me getting bullied. It was awful. People had always been so supportive of my good grades and ability in the past. Why were these people different? I tried to keep to myself, but they always know how to find you, and people who I thought were my friends were actually instigating things to harm me. I went to high school with a couple of guys who I thought were my friends. Decided to reinvent myself and became a little stupid in a hope that I wouldn't get bullied anymore. I stopped caring about grades and paying attention in class. Eventually led to me ditching school in the middle of the school day to go and play games in the town center. Got caught by the police on the way in and they rang my mom, who did not believe them, as I had always been so good before, and she went ape crazy on me. She made me move schools, again, and then I walked this line of doing the minimum I needed to pass to go to college, and goofing off to impress my friends and not get bullied, which did work. Eventually, I went to university and graduated from graphic design in 2009 during the recession. I managed to do a few odd jobs here and there and eventually landed a full-time design job in 2011. An in-house job, not much scope for promotion, very small team. I had dreams of working for a gaming developer like Valve or Rockstar, but never did anything in my free time to pursue this. Realized at about age 24 or 25 that it wasn't right for me to lack any passion about my work. I had my hobbies, which I enjoyed, but I felt very unfulfilled day to day. I decided to go back to the drawing board and figure out what I wanted to do, which was work with people, something more science-based and more mentally stimulating. I eventually clicked into medicine. I have always been interested in watching TV shows and documentaries on it. I knew I was smart enough to do medicine, but was worried about my past. Found out there were a couple of places I could apply. A hard entrance exam for someone from a non-science background was an obstacle, the GAMSAT. I applied the first time without success whilst staying at my design job. At the same time, I had started volunteering at my local hospital and picked up a part-time job as a support worker for an adult with learning disabilities. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful, but I knew this was something I wanted to do. I had become passionate about wanting to get in, so I left my design job to become a full-time healthcare assistant at my local hospital. It was a baptism of fire, and I nearly walked away early on, but I'm glad I stuck it out as I learned an incredible amount from just that job. We do a lot more than wash patients and wipe bums. My second application, while better on the entrance exam, also fell short. Unfortunately, my 2.2 degree was really limiting my options and making it more difficult to get into med school. I decided to do a master's degree to open up some extra options and hopefully make it easier. So I did a full-time master's degree, alongside working practically full-time as an HCA, alongside my part-time support worker job. My work was really supportive and gave me fixed hours so I could do uni stuff Monday to Thursday and work Friday to Sunday. Fortunately, the master's was pretty straightforward and varied enough to keep me interested, and I managed to write my dissertation on one of my other passions, which is esports. Once I finished my master's, I applied again. I managed to just scrape in on the entrance exam score for the GAMSAT and did alright at the UK CAT and managed to land 4 out of 4 interviews. I was over the moon and felt pretty confident at least one of the unis would give me an offer. Eventually, after 1 rejection and 3 waiting list places, and eventually another rejection, I received an offer to study medicine. 3 to 4 years of hard work and experience had paid off, and I was on my way to becoming a doctor. I cried with happiness in the bathrooms at work when I received my offer. I'm in my final year of med school now. I've managed to pass all my exams first time, and while I'm not going to graduate with honors or anything like that, I'm pleased that I've managed to find something I'm passionate about and that I am fulfilling my academic potential. I was lucky to have supportive friends and family and to not be tied down to a mortgage or kids, as I would have found it even more difficult. Anyways, hard work always pays off. Thanks for supporting Ask Planet.